There's no end to the four. I mean, Jung had a very pessimistic view of the general consciousness.
Rightly so. Rightly so.
He thought, this is not very well publicized, and a good thing, he thought that only probably 20% of the population was conscious enough that they should be able to vote.
I would go with 15%.
Right. My thought was that was a little
And
optimistic.
luckily you're in the 15%.
Yeah, right. Everyone here qualifies.
Just being here is
That's probably true.
enables you to vote.
But that may be, we don't know if that's a different ratio than there ever was. You know, that may be also a ratio internally. Only a small part of ourselves is conscious. And we don't know if there was ever consciousness.
Speaking from my mystical point of view, I believe it's consistent with the consciousness of the planet.
Mm-hmm.
15 to 20% is consistent and probably has been for a while. Now, God, in its infinite wisdom, maybe there's a reason. Maybe we need that tension. You know, I know confronting, let's go with my number. I know confronting the 85% of what I would call lower consciousness vibration forces me to think, to be, to trust myself. Look, if I play in front of 1,000 people and 850 of the 1,000 don't get it, well, what am I supposed to do? I figure it out.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's just wave your hand and it's like, look, he's excited.
Let's see if that works.
Yeah, big gestures. The point is it places me in a place where I can judge. Be like, they're so stupid they don't get it. Or I can be compassionate.
You take it in.
I can think about a time where maybe I was one of them. It forces something. The point is, to me as an artist, is I'm willing to do this again and again and again. I'm willing to take that ride and I'm willing to take the fish on. And sometimes the fish is me. I guess if I get mad, it's that 85% of the world doesn't care. So am I projecting that upon them, or is that real? Or both?
Well, I think it's real, but the fact that it concerns you, that's where the edge is. That's where your personal edge is. Because obviously we have to be concerned about injustice. We have to be concerned about the things which are right for life. On the other hand, when something really gets us, then that means it's alive inside us,
right,
in some personal way. And that's the fish. Then. That's what needs to be confronted.
So the fish is them.
The fish is them if that's what really gets your goat.
Yeah. Except there's 4.7 billion fish. That's the right number.
You mean as opposed to people?
Well, there's 6.4 billion people on the planet. I was trying to do the 85% math.
It's a lot of fish.
There's a lot of fish to take on.
Yeah. I mean, Jung thought that we're not really very far from an animal state. And so the conscious part of us is constantly trying to hold at bay and understand this other part.
Mm-hmm.
The other part's necessary too. It's where the life is. It's where the juice comes out of. I mean, right? We don't know what motivates us. We don't know what inspires us. At least I don't. When I have some kind of thought, I don't actually know where it came from.
Yeah. I was still on how close we are to animal state.
Yeah.
I stay with a friend, and his wife is a movie producer. And sometimes I just like to play, pitch hand. Just to see if she'll go for my movie.
This is like a parlor game.
Well, it's sort of like, yeah. And so one idea came up with was family sitting at home, they're having a normal dinner. They live in a nice neighborhood, and the lights go out. And they go to turn on TV, TV doesn't work, radio, static, they don't know what's going on. For some reason, all the power's gone out. Rumors start to spread. There's a disease, the power's been cut off. And within a week, the whole culture of this rich neighborhood develops quickly into like people with clubs. And it turns out to be some sort of solar incident. And so the key moment in the movie is the neighbor's about to kill his neighbor, for the rice in his basement. And the lights come back on and they realize it was just a solar imposition. But because we become so dependent on technology and the instantaneous knowledge, that without that, how quickly we revert back to something's wrong. It would only take a couple rumors. Like imagine if you lived in a nice neighborhood and your neighbor came over and said, something terrible's happened. There's been an act of terrorism and there's also this crazy disease going around and
It's coming out the block.
the cows are dying and don't go out in the street, What would you do? You could go to, you can't Google it, it's not working. We're used to that already.
Right.
So kind of like what you're saying, in some ways we're being set up for the big
Terminator. Well, that's the question, is, what's the natural state? And are things that we humans make, are they just extensions of a natural state that we have to be careful of? Or are they something unnatural? I mean, probably a bunch of you were here during the blackout that was about 4 or 5 years ago. New York City shut down. All of these streetlights, gone. And what happened? In my neighborhood, anyway, it was unbelievably peaceful. People were very courteous. The cars drove without a single beep. They would drive and then stop. The other cars would drive and then stop. It was mind-boggling to me.
There is a theory that people get in less accidents without traffic lights. I saw a statistical study that said when people are forced to think when they get to an intersection, but there's actually less accidents.
Yeah, let's hear that symbolically. When people get to an intersection and they're forced to think,
I believe it was
in their
pre-texting. Pre-texting.
Right. But when we get to an intersection in our lives, we better think. Right? So either we're going to take the automatic way, or we're going to crash.
Or we're going to throw a whiskey bottle.
What do you think? Should we open it up?
Sure.
All right. We have another half an hour or so. Questions, comments? Should we just keep going? What do you guys think? We covered a lot of ground. In the back and then in front.
I have a question,
Yeah.
Billy. I was reading your everythingfromheretothere.com blogs, and one of them you were talking about how, I don't remember the whole thing, but it was something about how people should accept themselves, whoever they are, they shouldn't have to aspire to. Oh, it was the Barbie doll one.
Mm-hmm.
And how whether whatever weight you are, how you look, but then, I don't know, maybe I missed something, but the comment before about the 457 pounds and would you like me if I was that, but I don't know, I wanted to hear your thoughts on that whole Barbie thing.
Right.
Did everyone hear that question?
No. Oh, really?
Okay, so how do we paraphrase?
I think
Yeah.
she was referring to a blog that I've written about accepting yourself as you are, but the comment that I made about would you love me if I was 457 pounds, and I think, did it confuse you, or you just want me to sort of muse on that?
I just felt like you were trying to tell people to accept people for who they are, but then you were kind of like talking about people not accepting someone who's bigger. So
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. Let's break that into two parts. The concept of accepting yourself as you are, that's not novel. That's nothing I invented. No, I'm just saying that it's just a contextual thing. You put it this way, you have to accept yourself as you are. You don't have a choice. In addressing the comment I made about would you love me if I was 457 pounds, what I'm speaking to is not the judgment, but going to the energy of the illusion of a relationship built on things that are projected. Like, I only go out with blondes, or I only go out with brunettes, or something like that. When you're in a love relationship, or even if you're in a business partnership, the shadow of the relationship is those unspoken, implied things that are assumed. And what I like to do is I like to confront them, because what I want to do is I want to get past them so that we're not scared. Right? So what am I really saying? What am I really saying when I say, would you love me as I is my 457 pounds? I'm saying is, I'm scared you won't love me if I gain weight.
if you appear different.
I'm pushing up the fear, my fear. It's not the judgment. I'm pushing up my fear that I'll be rejected, and at the same time, I'm also recognizing my shallowness, my shadow, which is, I might not love you if you're 457 pounds. You want to get to that depth in the relationship where you can confront those fears openly.
Absolutely, and then analytically, if there's that extra level of projection, the only way that the relationship's going to move forward is if you take that inside. Like, I want to be with someone famous. Well, if you're not famous, am I going to love you anymore? Then the question is, what do I have to do for myself to be recognized? In other words, how do I then find that in myself, as opposed to in the other person?
I found that as I've matured as a man, as a human being, that the things that I look for in a friend, in a business partner, in a woman have changed. When I was younger, I was more shallow. As I've gotten older, I see women now that maybe 10 years ago I wouldn't even have seen them as beautiful. Not because they're not physically attractive, but I wouldn't have seen their spirit. And so I think it's again and again, to confront where you're, I don't want to say weak, but where you kind of got a little BS in your story. And I think that's what we really yearn for when we're in intense relationships.
Yeah.
Is we want someone to say, look, I might like you because you're cute, but what I really like is the thing way back in there.
Yeah. There was someone in the front? Yeah.
I have a question for Billy. Throughout your dialogue today, you offered some criticism about technology and culture.
Mm-hmm.
I was wondering if you do embrace technology. You talk to fans a lot via the internet.
Mm-hmm.
I wanted to hear kind of the opposite from you, if you would offer any insight on what is it good for? What is it doing for us as a society?
Okay. She's asking what's good about technology, since I've been critical of technology. I do think technology is offering us a great opportunity to be in the ever-present moment. You do get a sense, like if you look at the most watched stories or what people are sending to each other, you do get a sense of what people are focused on. And that does give you a read on maybe the inner workings of us as a collective. I do love the idea that people who love a certain kind of pottery or can talk and can find each other. They're not so isolated anymore. I do think it's creating a different type of community. I think the difficulty is the baser instincts in human beings and their fears it's become more so to this point just a place to puke. And I do, like I said before, I do see a fatigue that's coming in where people are getting tired of that. I worked very hard with my band's website and literally just reached the point of just complete frustration because people just don't want to get along. Now going back to projection, I want them to get along, okay? I do. And I feel bad about the times where I've fostered people not getting along, personally and collectively. But now I want people to get along. You know what? I can't make them. They just don't want to get along. So I just had to go in peace with it. Just be like, okay, you're on your own. Kill yourselves. But my heart mourns because it's like, what a wasted opportunity. What a wasted opportunity.
And, we have to ask if human project has changed over history. I mean, would we rather go back to where we all had stone axes? And in Jung's view, any kind of tool is an extension of our consciousness. We're trying to change things to make them better. That's what we're trying to do. But of course, for every stone axe that we can cut down a tree with to build a shelter, we can also club some guy in the head with it. So the more technology evolves, the more we have to be conscious and the more we have to be responsible. It's a neutral thing in itself, psychologically speaking.
I saw a fascinating exhibit in Berlin 3 or 4 years ago, and it was the evolution of man. Or it's the evolution of the planet. And it started with plant fossils, then animal fossils, like 5 million, 10 million years ago. And it eventually came into where, they had the first evidence of human beings. And there was no sign of apparent violence until worship of gold. As soon as worship of gold and worship of silver came in, then came the weapons. It was interesting. It was like that exact moment.
Do you mean violence apart from, let's say, a leopard eating an impala?
Systemic violence. where people were like, we must get weapons. You know what I mean? At least that's the way it appeared to me on the surface. Because, you know,
Well, consciousness is dangerous, because the more we can formulate these ideas, which is good on one side, the more we can also use them for something negative.
believe me, I know. The more I open my mouth, the more trouble is caused.
Absolutely. And that's the risk, right? That's it. If you're offering it, but it's a risk.
Yes.
Thank you. Next question. I don't know where to go here.
Over here.
The assertive man with the beard.
That's right.
All right, we'll start there, then we'll work back this way.
I'm an assertive man with the beard. You said that you think you have an idea of why it is that you're able to elicit either love from crowds or the bottle at the head from crowds. Well, are you comfortable sharing what that you think that idea is? Or,
Sure.
Yeah.
Did everyone hear that question?
No.
No? Oh, I heard it. The gentleman was asking, why do I think that I elicit intense love and or intense unlove from crowds at times? Let's remove what would be called an overtly provocative act, like me on the mic going, I don't like you. So let's just say it's just a normal night and I'm just up there singing the song. It depends on the night. But in a general sense, let's try to answer the question. I think it's a very good question. I've spent a lot of energy wondering why I engender such intense feelings from people. To be honest, it goes back to my childhood, and I actually even recently talked to my stepmother about this. Adults used to pull my stepmother aside when I was 5, 6, 7 years old and say, will you please get him to stop staring at me? That's pretty unusual if you think about it, just in general, that adults would go out of their way to complain about a child's intensity. So this thing has followed me my whole life in the best way I can understand it. So, going at it from a psychological or collective unconscious point of view, my estimation of it, which I'm sure is limited because I'm experiencing it, is that I'm a really good mirror. I'm a really good mirror. And if you've ever been to the zoo and you look and there's a sign that says the most dangerous animal in the world, and you look and it's a mirror.
Back to the animal part.
Right. I'm a really, really good mirror. I don't know why, because I'm not blank.